Cindy Russell. I'm a project manager with the Education Services Department of Bulletproof Solutions. As a project manager, I interface with the client as well as the resources on the back end that are developing for the client, and really take the client's vision and what they're looking for us to produce for e-learning course and make it happen for them. Since probably 2002, 14 years. Started as an instructional designer, then started to coordinate projects, and then moved into project management. Definitely. I think that the more customers, the more e-learning customers do, the better they get at it with regards to what they want to get out of it, as well as what they're looking for in their product. So the more courses that they see and the more cycles that they go through and processes that they go through, then they're able to become better informed and make better decisions throughout the life cycle of the project to then, like you say, potentially save money in the end or make it easier for them in the end, start to finish. I do think it's important for a client to come with some type of background knowledge about e-learning and about courses before they do engage with a vendor, because I think that helps them to know a little bit of what to expect. Every project's going to be slightly different, every vendor's going to be slightly different that they work with, but the more kind of background information that they have and homework that they do to know a little bit of what to expect, even some of the terminology to pick up on, that would definitely help them throughout the life cycle of the project. For the customer, really reviewing for them is to ensure that the product that we're delivering to them meets what their intent is. I say that, and there's some specific things with regards to content. We want to make sure it's accurate for what they want to portray. We want to make sure it's going to reach their target audience and make sense to them. But then there's kind of the backside, you know, the legal department in companies wants to make sure that it's all on the up and up. For legal issues, you know, you have, I'll say, technical subject matter experts that need to get involved, and then you have, you know, people who just want to review to get their voice out there. So there's many different roles that the customer could play, and there could be various people playing that role on the customer side, or it could be one person playing that sole role for the customer. The vendor is always responsible for the quality of the product that goes out the door. So that relates to, with regards to spelling, you know, grammar, technical issues, making sure that everything within a course lines up correctly, looks appropriate on the screen. There's no mistakes in there for the information that they've been provided. And I say it that way because there may be a content mistake in there, but based on the information that was provided, that would then turn into the client's role to ensure that the content is accurate for their course and their content specifically. Different review cycles break down different ways to know what the client is specifically looking for during that cycle. It could be more straight content, straight audio, or then it could bring in, you know, graphics as well as visual elements, and that kind of normally happens further down the road in the project cycle. No special training at all. We said a little bit of homework maybe to kind of know what they're going to review, but really the e-learning provider should also be letting the client know what they need to focus on at that stage for their review. I think a perfect world for the review cycle on the customer side would be 2 to 3 people. You want to make sure that you have somebody involved from the training department so that really knows, you know, who the audience is, who the end users are of the course, so they kind of keep that in mind as they go. But you also want to have a couple of people who are very knowledgeable about the content, making sure that it is accurate for what they're looking for. Like I say, 2 to 3 people. You get more than that, you know, you might throw a legal review in there, or you might throw somebody else in, but the more, I'll say, subject matter experts you get, the more time it takes typically on the client side to review, because everybody normally reviews independently and then provides all their feedback, and there has to be one person that's going to consolidate all that feedback and make sure it's correct before it goes to the vendor. those review cycles are okay to do, but I think it's very important for the people who have been involved in the project from the start, typically the day-to-day contact with the vendor, to kind of give the new reviewer a little bit of background information. Some of the decisions that have been previously made, whether it's on look and feel of the interface, certain graphic styles that are going to be used, kind of set the groundwork for that reviewer before they take a look, just to make sure that they know what's been decided upon, and not necessarily what can and can't be changed, but just so they have that awareness going in. I've seen the odd time where we deliver a course to a client and they let us know, the number of people that are going to be involved in the review. These 2 people are looking for X, these 2 people are looking for Y, this person's going to look for this, but they're out of town during that review time, so someone else is going to cover off for them, during that time, even though other person hasn't seen the course before. Those kind of things typically give me red flags that either 1, we're going to have a review that comes in late, 2, we're going to have comments that potentially could be out of scope at this stage, or 3, we're not going to get as effective a review at this stage, which may cause problems later on when the correct people review and they finally look at the course and we've gone through further cycles in the process. From the beginning. I think once we kick off a project and the vendor starts into the design, on the client side, they should be identifying who the review team is, because it's important to get them involved. You may not have each individual person review from the beginning stages, so at the design, but they need to know, again, some of those decisions that are being made, to know if they should be reviewing, and then what information you need from them from the design, because the design really sets the design for the full course. Typically we'd start at the design document phase. That is assuming that we have content from the client that's in a fairly good working order. So as a vendor, we would take that content, break it down for the course with lessons, topics, as well as objectives for those areas, and identify kind of the key main content that we want in those areas, ensuring that there's no gaps and there's nothing more that we need from the client in order to fulfill that. We'd send that to the client for review. They look through, make sure it's good, the objectives meet what they're looking for their end users, and then provide us feedback. At that stage, we move into the overall development cycle called alpha, or the very first kind of content review by the client. And the alpha review really includes all of the audio that's going to be in the course, if there is audio in the course, all of the screen text, really all of those detailed content items, as well as descriptions for what the visuals for that page will look like, or the overall design for the page, how the content's going to fit in and be taught. We would send that to the client to review, really looking for them to focus on that text and audio script at the time, as well as our vision, making sure it equates to their vision for those pages and how the overall look is going to be for the project. Once we receive their feedback from that, we obviously implement the feedback, and then we move into beta, which really brings in a lot of the different media elements. So we would record audio for the beta, whether it's professional audio or robot audio, but really get that audio sound in there and then timing down for the individual pages. The media, the graphics, videos, illustrations, photos, everything would be included within that beta review. So it really brings the, I'll say, course to life, brings the project to life at that point in time for the customer. They'd review that, provide us feedback for that, we'd implement it, and then the next stage would be final. Fingers crossed, hopefully, that it goes to final, and really for final, the customer is verifying that their comments they made at beta were implemented as they intended, and the product meets their needs of what they're looking for. I think it should be clearly laid out in the contract that you have with your vendor, just to ensure that you're seeing the course in multiple touch points as you go through the development cycle. And so it's not, giving the vendor content at the beginning, expecting a product to come out in the very end when you haven't seen anything in the middle, and hoping that it's going to, fingers crossed, hoping it's going to meet your needs. I say the main things that can go astray if reviewing is not done properly is impacts on schedule and impacts on budget. The reason that we put the kind of different stages of review for the client in place is because with each one we add more development items on the end, which are all directly related to time and money. So that's why we don't, from the start, go and record professional audio, spend the time and money to do that, and then have the client, see it for the first time with all the audio in there, knowing it's going to have to be re-recorded again. So there are specific kind of, gates and checkpoints with each review that we want to make sure the client is looking for in order to make sure that they don't go out of scope with their comments or comment on things that should have been identified at an earlier stage when they were easier to fix than it is at a later stage when they're more time and costly to fix. Depending on the stage of review, typically when you start with design and or storyboard, the client's either going to see a Word document or a PowerPoint, which they can use track changes, comments to insert to make their revision comments and feedback there. And then when you get into development, normally because it's now in an online version, they would receive a spreadsheet or something comparable to that they can put their comments in, identifying the page that they're commenting on, and whatever their comment happens to be, whether it's about a visual or actual text. I do think it would be a red flag if you are engaging with a e-learning provider and they don't provide you any information in the contract or early on in the process about when you're going to see your product through the development cycles and kind of what the different stages are for those reviews throughout the life cycle of the project. Because it's very important, obviously, for the client to be able to understand what's being developed to ensure it's meeting their needs, and not for the vendor to work in a box and not have that communication back and forth. It's very important to have it in order to make sure that the product in the end is what the client is looking for and it does meet their needs.